Before diving into this story, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe, because here, every story is a new emotion you won't want to miss. Beneath the colors of autumn, Clara arrived in her hometown on a morning when autumn seemed to breathe deeper. The trees shed golden leaves across the sidewalks, as if letting go of old memories to make space for what was yet to come. The taxi stopped in front of her grandmother's old house, now empty, silent, holding time frozen since the day the woman who taught Clara how to love life, even in its harshest winters, passed away. She stepped out of the car, pulling her suitcase with one hand and clutching to her chest a scarf that still carried her grandmother's scent. She took a deep breath. The smell of damp earth, dry leaves, and crisp wind. It was a mix of grief and longing, but also a subtle promise of healing. Clara hadn't returned since the funeral. After losing her mother and, more recently, her grandmother, the town had become a mirror of all she had lost. But something within her had drawn her back. Maybe it was the silence she craved, or maybe it was the need to listen to what grief doesn't say aloud. The days passed slowly, bathed in soft sunlight filtered through the trees. In the mornings, Clara sorted through old papers, clothes that still held the shape of her grandmother's body, and letters that were never sent. In the afternoons, she walked to the lake where she used to ride her bike as a teenager, and that's where she saw him again. Daniel, sitting by the water's edge, his camera resting on his lap, eyes fixed on the trees reflected in the lake. He hadn't changed much, still with that calm gaze, a fuller beard, and the same way of watching the world before speaking. Clara hesitated, as if seeing a memory brought to life. But when he looked up, he smiled, as though he had known she was there all along. Clara. She smiled back softly, approaching slowly, afraid to wake up a dream that had once been real. "You still take pictures?" she asked. "Always," he replied. "Nature is the only place where things make sense." Their conversation started off shy, full of pauses, but soon found its rhythm. They walked along a path covered in leaves, speaking of everything and almost nothing. Daniel told her he had never left town. He became a nature photographer, traveled a bit, but always returned. He said the forest taught him more about life than any book ever could. Clara spoke of her life in the big city, the deadlines, the noise, the loud kind of loneliness. She said little about the pain of her losses, not out of trust, but because she hadn't yet found words that didn't feel hollow. Trust, but because she hadn't. In the days that followed, they started meeting naturally. He took her on trails where the sunlight danced between the branches, and the trees whispered ancient secrets. Slowly, Clara began to rediscover something she thought she had lost. The gentle way of seeing beauty, the courage to feel without fear of breaking, the lightness of laughing without guilt. One morning, while walking beneath a tunnel of red and gold maple trees, Daniel stopped and pointed to a nearly bare tree, its leaves scattered like a golden blanket around its roots. "You know what I love most about autumn?" he asked. "The courage trees have to let go. They don't cling to what no longer serves them. They know that to bloom again, they must first accept the emptiness." Clara said nothing. She felt that phrase settle inside her like a key, unlocking something buried deep. She thought of her mother, her grandmother, of the guilt she carried for not being more present. She thought of all the times she pretended to be okay just so no one would worry. She realized she had held on to her pain as if it defined her, and maybe it was time to let it fall. "I don't know how to do that," she confessed, her eyes brimming with tears. "No one really does," Daniel said. "We just try. One step at a time, one leaf at a time." That afternoon, Clara wrote for the first time in months. Just a simple piece, but honest, about what it means to lose someone, and how nature, in all its silent, relentless cycles, teaches that nothing is truly lost, only transformed. With time, she allowed herself to live again. The pain didn't vanish, but it changed shape. It stopped being a weight and became a warmth, a quiet, loving memory rather than a wound. Daniel stayed by her side, never rushing. They didn't talk about forever. They didn't make promises. They simply shared the present fully, as if they both understood that love, like autumn, needs space to breathe, to fall, to grow again. When Clara finally decided to return to the city, it wasn't out of escape, but choice. She had found what she came looking for, not a miraculous cure, but a new meaning for the ache. She knew she would carry the town's autumn within her, and she knew she would return. On her last morning, before leaving, she and Daniel walked back to the lake. He photographed her beneath a nearly naked tree. "You look beautiful like this," he said. "Because you look real." She smiled, holding the emotion tight in her throat. "Thank you," she whispered, "for reminding me how good it feels to feel." He nodded, and they said nothing more. In that moment, silence was a language of its own. The end.